Hi moms, I'm Sandrine with Moms Thriving. Today I want to talk about how to raise children that are difficult, children that dance to their own music and march to their own rhythm, children that color outside the box, children that are constantly told, or you as a mom, you're constantly told that your child does not follow the rules, your child does not do what everybody else is doing. So many times when we hear these things, it brings discouragement and fear. We wonder what will happen to this child. So I want to talk about two things that I believe that will help us navigate through this season as moms with small children, teenagers, and even adult children. I myself was one of those children. I was very strong-willed and very argumentative. My dad will always tell me that I needed to become a lawyer because I would be good at it. And in his own way, he encouraged me to embrace who I was. Even though I encountered people who did not accept me, I always remembered that I was okay. This was okay for me to voice my opinion. And so many times, our teachers and different people tell us that our children are too much. And so we don't know what to do. I want to encourage you with these two things. Number one, to go to the Father and to ask Him to give us a game plan, to give us a manual. After all, none of us put together furnitures or appliances without the manual. And some of us who have tried to do that, we know most times it doesn't work out. In Psalm 139, the Bible tells us that before one day of our lives ever came to pass, in our mother's womb, as God was kneading us together, as He was building us, as He was forming us, He had written a book about us before one of them came to pass. So there is a book manual for our children. Some of us were raised with boys, and so we don't know how to raise a girl. Some of us were raised with girls. We don't know how to raise a boy, and so we find conflict. We just don't know what to do. So number one, I want to encourage us to ask the Father to give us the vision, to give us that book, so that we will attach our faith with what He says. We will attach our faith with what God has spoken about them, so that we can encourage our children to be exactly what God called them to do. There's a story in the Bible about Jesus. He was around the age of 12. It's found in Luke 2. His parents went to celebrate Passover, but something happened. As they arrived home, they realized that Jesus was not with them. I could imagine how they felt. I could imagine the thoughts, especially because as a child, people tried to kill Jesus. So like most of us, His parents traced their steps back to the last place they saw Him, the last place they had Him. And they found Him there at the temple. And they told Him, how could you disobey? How could you not follow the rules? And they told Him, like most of us would tell our children, when the teachers tell them to follow the rules and they don't follow. And Jesus answers them by saying, don't you know that I am always about my Father's business, that I will always be here at the temple? And that Jesus reminded them His purpose. Instead of them looking at it as Him being disobedient, Jesus told them, reminded them that what I'm doing is what I was called to do. So Mom, I just want to encourage you with that story, for you to know that your children's behavior, their active behavior, their loud behavior, their strong-willed behavior does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. The second thing that I want to discuss is what we say when we see a behavior that's different, a behavior that we don't agree with. Many times, your child bites, or they bite 1, 2, 3 times, and then we begin to say things like, why do you always bite? We begin to say things like, why don't you ever listen? Why don't you just do what Mom tells you? And so as we begin to say these things, always, don't follow rules, it becomes as though we are prophesying into their lives. We are saying these things, but we don't see a change. The reason why we don't see the change is because Satan, our enemy, the Bible calls him our adversary, takes those words that we say, those negative words, and he takes it to the Father and he accuses us, because he is the accuser. He is our accuser. And he tells the Father that he has legal right, because as his parents, we say that as their legal guardian. We say those things, and so it gives him access to inflict rebellion into our children, to inflict just chaos and anarchy. So mom, I just want to encourage you to ask the Father, what is your child's destiny? So that you will raise them into that destiny, so that God will give you the image. When you see that you will raise, no matter what people say, you will always know this is what they were created to be. Lastly, I just want to give you a story about my daughter. She is our oldest, and we will, every night we pray with them before bed. And then recently, she will just kind of take a long time to pray, or she will not say anything. So after 2-3 nights, my husband and I are wondering, like, why? I mean, she will, will be how she will pray. She'll just be like, and so it'll be like 2 minutes later, it's just, And so my younger daughter, that's her personality. She's very active. She's like a go-getter. So she saw that her sister was not praying, so she goes and started praying. My daughter, my oldest, feelings were hurt because she took her turn. So my husband and I were like, well, you didn't pray. That's why she prayed. And she told us, she said, but I was thinking. At that moment, I was reminded, wow, this is her. She's a thinker. So she wasn't trying to prolong bedtime. She was just thinking. So my husband and I encouraged her to take her time. And the next day, she prayed with confidence. So I just want to encourage you with that, mom. When we see a behavior, it does not necessarily mean that our children are being disobedient and rebellious. It perhaps means that that is what they were called to do. And our job is to raise them in the right way, is to guide them, and not to speak negativity, but to speak life, because we have the ability to give life with our words or to kill. I hope this encouraged you, mom. Until next time, keep thriving.